And we're back. Noah Savage, Rick Wolf, and another episode of Old School, New School. How are you?
I'm well, Noah. What's new in the headlines these days in the world of sports? What do you think is a big topic we can talk about?
Well, it's kind of been said that the NBA offseason has been better than the NBA playoffs, and another huge story emerging from the Cleveland Cavaliers, which has really become a soap opera, in that Kyrie Irving, despite going to back-to-back NBA finals, wants a trade because he, quote, doesn't want to play with LeBron anymore.
I'm not even sure how to react to that. I mean, in my day, teammates were supposed to be loyal to their teammates. Now, let's be candid here. The Cavaliers have a terrific ball club. Even you would agree with that, correct?
Yeah, I'm a huge Cavs fan, and what surprises me most about it is that LeBron is not the superstar who you don't want to play with. He's very much a facilitator, and the guy who doesn't pass on the team is actually Kyrie. He likes to dribble it and shoot it. He should have a ton more assists than he does.
Well, what is, from what you've looked at this issue, what is Kyrie saying? Why does he want out? It's probably the reason he gives, and there's a real reason behind that smokescreen.
So when Kyrie signed his 5-year deal, which is now 3 years ago, so he's got 2 years left on it.
Yeah,
he basically was signing up to be the max guy, to be the guy who they built around.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to play up-tempo. Mm-hmm. It was going to be Kyrie's team. And then LeBron came back.
Right.
And they went from being a lottery team to a team that went to the finals every year.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Kyrie himself isn't saying anything. It's all through intermediaries. But the other kind of underlying subplot is that it's been all but confirmed that it's very likely that this is LeBron's last year with the Cavs, and that he's going to go to Lakerland to play out the kind of twilight of his career. But that's been confirmed because he hasn't re-signed. He hasn't said I'm committed to the Cavs.
Well, look, first of all, you're buying into this fantasy land of, maybe LeBron's going to leave and go play for the Lakers and Kyrie. Yeah. And look, the fact that let's start the basics.
Yeah.
The Cavaliers have had a tremendous run, right?
Yeah. 3 title games.
Yeah.
3 championship series, 1 championship.
Right, which is still pretty impressive, right?
Yep.
So if I'm Kyrie Irving, I'm thinking, well, okay, it was supposed to be Kyrie Irving and the Cleveland Cavaliers, not LeBron James and the Cavaliers, but that's the way it goes.
Right, but can Kyrie ever say he cares about winning again? Isn't this one of the most clear selfish moves you've ever seen?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. This is bogus. I as you said, it's not coming from Kyrie, it's coming from his intermediaries, as you said. So people want to know what is going on. What is it you want? Do you want to tear up your contract, get an extension? Do you want more money? I can't believe that's true. Or does he want to be, as you said, he wants clarification? Is he doing this to provoke LeBron to say, I'm playing here one more year and then I'm going off someplace else. I'm going to go play for Golden State or somebody. LeBron's getting old now.
Well, what's bizarre is that I think that Kyrie looks around the league and sees Steph Curry is MVP. He gets all the attention. And he goes, wait, I have all these skills. I'm as good of a shooter as him. I have probably the best handle in the league. But what I don't understand is that the most money you can make in the NBA is if you stay with your own team. They have a strong incentive. And the swing for a guy like Kyrie to re-sign with his own team or leave is something like $60 to $70 million. It's not like $5 million. It's like big, big money. So what is in his head where he goes, somehow LeBron is stopped? What is LeBron stopping him from doing? I don't get it. It's bananas.
I don't understand, as you don't, is what is the motivation here?
I don't know. I honestly am struggling. He gets as many shots as he wants. He dribbles around in circles.
Well, do you think he's as good as Steph Curry?
Skill-wise?
Yes.
He's very close. Yeah. Very, very close.
But who's better?
Steph, because he's less selfish.
Fine. And who's better, LeBron?
LeBron's the best player in the world. By far. It's not even close. It is not even close.
I mean, those in the NBA might say the MVP.
No. Nobody says anybody's better than LeBron.
Fine. So is it possible that Kyrie's a bright kid? Do you think that he just isn't, he has his blind spot, or his ego is, or his posse is surrounding him with all sorts of false, mythology that he's better than he really is? But what does he want here? What does he want?
I think what's happening is he's reacting to LeBron not being fully committal. Is that a word, committal?
Yes, that's a word.
All right, so he's going, wait, LeBron, you're considering down the line, you're being the mastermind. LeBron has an agency, Clutch Sports, so he's doing a lot of the string pulling. He represents, not he, but his best friend from high school represent Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, all players all over the landscape of basketball. And then Kyrie says, hold on, are you potentially even considering leaving? Well, then good, I'm leaving. I think he feels slighted.
So you're of the belief that this is just a move to provoke, LeBron to sign and to make a deal here, because he's probably thinking, well, the NBA is now evolved into these superstar teams.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, if LeBron doesn't come back and I'm stuck here, I'm really good.
Yeah.
But I can't win this by myself. So I can't.
Yeah, but how can you even say the word win when Kyrie Irving said that he would go to the Knicks?
Oh,
he literally wants to go back to where he was and be the best player with the ball in his hands all the time on a losing team. I mean, he said everything but saying, I'm okay with losing.
I wasn't aware he had lost his mind and wanted to go to the Knicks.
Yeah. So,
well, then obviously he needs to really sort of rethink all this and take a big step back and say, wait a minute. I mean, I could see if he said, okay, I want to go to another, superstar team. But there, on a superstar team, he's not going to be the big gun, because he's one of many big guns. So I don't know. We can't figure out what it's all about. But from my perspective, this is another case of new school, an important fundamental concept of team loyalty.
Yeah.
You don't talk trash about your teammates, particularly if one teammate is the heart and soul of your ball club. What are you doing? Does loyalty have no more use in your world? I mean, nobody cares. It's all about gimme. It's all about me. I guess it is. That's not a good thing, Noah. That's not a good thing.
Well, the problem is that people start thinking about their legacy, and he goes, I already have a ring. What's my brand? What's my global impact?
Please.
What I don't get is all of that is better by playing with LeBron.
Yeah.
This is like a Kobe Shaq type thing where, all right, ride it out as long as possible. You're the younger guy, so Kyrie could potentially play with LeBron the next 5-6 years. He retires, and then Kyrie gets another superstar with him and has a second run. He can kind of have a double prime career where he has two primes.
All this kind of stuff brings to mind, and unfortunately, I can't remember the two fellows' names, but there was a broadcast team, a baseball broadcast team for many, many, many years, I believe in Cleveland, as a matter of fact, and they were great on the air. They were terrific. They had huge, huge following, wonderful guys. But the reality is when the game ended, they packed up and just went the other. They hated each other.
Yeah.
But they got along great on the air. Their talents meshed, but they didn't like each other.
Right.
That may be the case here with LeBron and with Irving.
Yeah, but that's fine.
I know.
Don't hang out with LeBron. Like, people think that Jordan and Pippen were like so tight. They never spoke off the court, according to a lot of sources. Jordan was friends with Barkley and Ewing, all these other guys, but it doesn't matter. It's a working relationship, and you have to look at the NBA and go, we're not going to win the West, right? So if we're winning the East every year, that should be the goal.
Yes.
Win the East every year, get back, try to knock off Golden State.
The truth is, and there's the bottom line of this, you don't have to be the best friend with your teammates.
Right.
You don't have to be the headliner on your team. If it's all about the team, and that's been drilled into our heads since you were, 3, 4, 5 years old, team comes first.
Yeah.
Then the team does come first, and you start squawking about, I don't know, what's he going to do? I really think I want to go someplace else. Then you're doing a huge disservice to your team. And when things get settled down come next October and they all kiss and make up, that's a problem because people say, why were you talking trash all during July?
So you think that he's going to stay, number
Absolutely.
one. This is just, I want some attention, which I'll buy that too. Where they go, wait a second, everybody's talking about what LeBron's going to do after this year. Maybe I remind everybody, if I'm Kyrie, that I'm a superstar as well. But we'll move on. But first, I just want to ask, what, from an old school perspective, what does a player do if he is unhappy? Like, let's say LeBron's a monster and Kyrie's life is miserable, and he says, I don't care, I've had enough of this guy. How do you is there any point where you're allowed to say this is not working?
I mean, back in the day, before free agency existed, you had to put up with it because you could not demand a trade. You didn't have like a contract that at the end of your contract limits you could then go someplace else. You were the property. Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth. Gehrig couldn't stand Babe Ruth. He hated him. But they're on the Yankees, and by golly, they're going to keep playing together. Gehrig couldn't demand a trade, and they would never trade him because he was Lou Gehrig, because he was so good. So nowadays, if you don't like your situation, you wait till your contract expires and you move on.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
All right, we're going to move on. Some more shocking news this week, or this last 2 weeks. O.J. Simpson paroled. He'll be released from prison. Unbelievable. The second time this guy is going to get out of jail and kind of shock the world. But I want to take it through my perspective and your perspective of what OJ's kind of had a renaissance in the last 2 years, because there's been a documentary, there's been a scripted series about him. For me, the first time I ever heard of OJ Simpson was in 1994.
Well, that's
okay.
Let me just put. All right, this is the ultimate old school, new school. In '94, I can very vividly recall that when he was in the white Bronco,
it was the Knicks were on.
Well,
it was interrupted.
Well, I was actually working that particular afternoon, evening with in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, the Cleveland Indians AAA team had a series there against the Pawtucket Red Sox, and all the ball players from the Indians were in the clubhouse watching TV because what the heck's going on? O.J. Simpson, Hall of Fame football player, great star at USC, everybody's favorite guy. You remember him from Nordberg, in
I know, that's how I knew him. I knew, that guy.
So, I mean, all of a sudden, here's this wonderful guy running through airports for Hertz. And what? He's done what? He's killed his wife and another fellow? What's going on? This is crazy talk.
Right.
So, we don't want to go to the whole debate about his innocence or guilt, although, I mean, he obviously was acquitted of the murder.
Right.
But the fact is, most people in the country, I think it's fair to say, said, "No, this is nuts. This is just a violation. It's an abomination of the legal system that he got away with this."
Can you compare how big of a star he was to somebody from more recently? Because just to see how bizarre it was to see this guy's up for murder. Who's a star of today that you would say, wait a second, imagine if this guy was on a murder trial?
Yeah, I mean, I would say he was at the same. I mean, I go back to watching OJ and playing for USC, playing in their big arch rival end of the season game against UCLA, and just running, rampant. He was unstoppable. To your perspective, again, with a lot of people we can compare him to, but OJ, particularly because of his nickname, was probably comparable to LeBron James.
He was that big.
He was that big.
Wow.
He was that big. And then, of course, he ended up playing for Buffalo, small market town, not much media, but O.J. had a tremendous career in Buffalo and made the Bills competitive for many years. But he was O.J., and I have to tell you, he was beloved. He was not a bad guy. And so when his football career came to an end, and then he went on to do commercial endorsements for Hertz and doing some movie roles and stuff. He was a huge deal. So this was absolutely shocking. So in your world, so imagine all of a sudden one day you wake up and you put on the TV set and you see LeBron James
on the lam.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
On I-94 out of Ohio, trying to escape the police because he's accused of killing his wife and another guy. I mean, it's just bizarre.
Well,
now the parole situation is different because this had to do with, obviously unrelated to the murders. It had something to do with the fact that he was somehow snookered into, trying to get his old memorabilia back in Vegas and whatever. But he did his time for that. And if I'm thinking if I'm on the parole board, and this wasn't a famous athlete, just some other guy, some other schnook, I think they said that he did 9 years and he was a model citizen and he didn't cause any problems and he seems to be an upside. They would have said, sure, you've done your time, get out of here.
Right, but let's take it back a second because the documentary that ESPN did that was unbelievable, won an Emmy. There was some footage in there of his civil some of the civil proceedings where he was interviewed, and some of his interviews were just so arrogant, so not cooperative, so inconsistent. And then the hearing for his parole this time just showed some of those same perspectives. And when he got off for murder, he basically moved to Miami and lived like a bad boy lifestyle. I mean, he was doing a ton of drugs. He was hanging out with a rough crowd. He didn't like live a quiet life and say, wow, I got really lucky. And I thought there was still that arrogance in his parole hearing this time. The judge asked him, for example, well, last time you said you had a drinking problem and you were going to do AA. Did you end up doing that? And he said, no, I never had a drinking problem.
Yeah.
And they said, you said you had a drinking problem last time we were here. And he said, no, I just never did that. I never did that. So what's bizarre to me is like his level of this arrogance, and there's no contrition. There's no.
Let's back up for a second, please. Let me make very, very, very clear. I'm not here to defend O.J. Simpson.
Right.
Like everybody else in the country, I'm absolutely convinced that he was responsible for those two murders.
And in civil court, he was found responsible.
And in civil
which
court,
is so bizarre that you can be guilty and not guilty of the same crime.
And the reason why he lives in Florida,
yeah,
is because under the Florida state law, you're found liable for bankruptcy or whatever, they can't take your home.
Right.
That's why he lives there.
Yeah.
Okay. The fact is that there were all sorts of theories about OJ. Well, maybe he flipped out and killed his wife and his wife's friend because OJ suffered from concussion trauma, and that's how it manifested itself with his surge of violence. OJ was never. You just don't know much about this guy. I mean, now they're trying to portray him as a kindly guy, and his daughter's saying, we just want to have him come home and be with our family. You know, he was O.J. Simpson. He was a big, big deal. I'm sure LeBron James has moments where he lashes out. Not that he kills anybody, but, he has moments where he can't deal with the media, can't deal with the demands on his time. I'm not sure what to do with O.J. You're saying, of course, I guess you're saying he should have stayed in jail until he rotted?
No, I'm just saying it's bizarre to listen to a guy who most of the country thinks murdered two people, and he said the words, I'm not a violent guy, I've never had any incidents.
Because
it's so surreal that he wouldn't have any awareness to maybe not choose those words, but to say, since I've been in prison, I've been behaved, or I've really learned to do X, Y, Z.
You're asking for too much.
But crazy. But that's just crazy, right? It's bizarre and surreal. It'll be like it'd be like
there's an old philosopher.
It'd be like Bernie Madoff saying, like, I'm not the type of guy who takes people's money, or
right. Well, there's an old philosopher, a famous guy named George Costanza.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
If you believe it, then it's true.
That's right. So, that's true. Yeah.
So I think OJ believes he didn't kill those people.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're saying, are you kidding me? I mean, of course you kill these people. But he's had a lot of time to reflect and think in prison. He probably does think I was found not guilty, therefore it didn't happen. Which also means, by the way, which you didn't bring up, he still gets his NFL pension.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, he was found innocent.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
And also, he's been telling that lie for 23 years. It's big news, and I kind of wanted to look at it from. It's bizarre that my generation too only thinks of him in terms of the murder trial.
Yeah.
We never thought of him as beloved. We only have negative connotations.
The only thing it's like
what a bizarre life, really.
It's a bizarre life. It's like Bill Cosby. Well, he got a hung jury, but they can retry him. But the fact is, Bill Cosby, for the rest of his life and into his legacy, the first line in the obituary: Bill Cosby, famous comedian,
rapist
turned rapist.
Yeah. Or
Bill Clinton, another one of the heroes of your generation.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton, a popular president who was impeached, for having sex with a 22-year-old intern in the White House.
Yeah.
I mean, these things, for old school people like me, I have a hard time, these kind of images. And a lot of people love Bill Clinton for being a wonderful guy, and he's so friendly and everything. He's like your Uncle Buck, a Dutch uncle.
Yeah, but Cosby's a good comparison because I'm old enough to remember Bill Cosby, wholesome comedian who told my generation to pull up our pants and not swear.
Yeah, yes.
And then, 15 years later, he's, all this stuff is outed about him. Just bizarre that when people are beloved and they have a much darker side.
We live in interesting times, my friend.
All right, so we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. Old school, new school. Noah Savage and Rick Wolf.
Noah, I have to point this out to you because, other day we were talking about the ongoing debate of everybody gets a trophy, which your generation obviously has grown up with.
That's right.
You just sign up, you register for Little League or AAU basketball or ASO soccer. Everybody gets a trophy, regardless if you ever play, show up for practice, nothing. You pay your money, you get a trophy.
Yeah.
An article in USA Today last week caught my eye, which reminded me of that same situation. For years and years and years, there's been this growing creep of grade inflation in this country.
Yeah.
And this article pointed out that half of all high school seniors in the United States, that's 50%,
wow,
now graduate with an A average in high school. Now, say, well, our kids are getting smarter. No, they're not.
Right.
They're not getting smarter. In fact, the article goes on to point out that even though the GPAs seem to get higher and higher, the fact of the matter is the SAT scores, which are clear, objective, standardized metrics.
Wrong, but okay, keep going.
Whoa.
Not true.
They're going down. They're
Yeah.
going. So in other words, the high school seniors, while they say, "Hey, mom, hey, dad, I got an A average in high school," the fact of the matter is their SAT scores are going down, which means they're getting stupider or dumber.
Yes.
Now, I know you're going to tell me that all the colleges as well, they're cracking down. They're trying to do the best they can to cause grade deflation.
No, not all. I'll tell you my own personal
Well, I can tell you, back when I was in college,
journey.
back when I was in college in the 70s,
Yeah.
I mean, there was no grade inflation in college. And you really, to get an A,
Yeah.
now mind you, yes, it was Harvard. But yes, to get an A, you really had to do something special, really had to perform, you really had to bust your butt. If you didn't, you probably got, what they call a gentleman B.
Right.
But if you didn't do anything,
Well-
I had friends who got D's and F's in college. They flunked out.
But
Now-
here's the problem. And I'll tell you, and then we'll get back to
Okay.
your train of thought is that. So when I was at Princeton, they actually noticed that this was a trend, and they said, wait a second, we're Princeton. We want our A's to really mean something. So
Yes.
they tried to address it. And they instituted an official policy that was called grade deflation. So basically there was a quota. X number of people got an A, X number of people got a B. X number of people. I don't think there was a quota for C's. Like they didn't mandate people had to get C's, but only X number of people could get an A.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a policy for maybe 5-6 years, all the years I was there, of course. And they said, well, when we give you your transcript for employers or for whoever, we're going to give you a letter that explains this.
Oh, God, sure.
So that's great. So you say, all right, I got a 3.2, so I'm going up against a guy who got a 3.9 from Dartmouth or from Harvard for some job. Oh, but I get a letter saying that, well, this is a 3.2, but really
it's a real 3-2.
So guess what happened to this policy after a couple of years? Obviously, everybody hated it because you think about it from the other side. If you're at Princeton or even if you're at a high school, if there's X number of questions on the test and 30 out of the 40 students get, 95% of them correct, guess what? Everybody deserves an A. There's the other side of this that maybe everybody does deserve good grades.
Holy smokes!
Especially if you're at Princeton. Isn't everybody smart?
Well, that's the ongoing rationale now that, well, it's so tough to get into a highly competitive Ivy League school. So, yes, everybody is brilliant, and they all should get A's. But it's up to the professors to say, yeah, but to really make an A at a Princeton or a Dartmouth or someplace like that really mean something, we're going to have to show that this is like the top 10% of the class.
Right.
Everybody else is all brilliant, but in this particular case, these kids get B's and some of them get C's because they didn't do really good term papers or try to phone it in. Now, you're going to tell me, well, is that fair to the kids who go to, Slippery Rock and they have straight A's and you only have like a 3.2? Yeah, but it's Slippery Rock. That's the difference.
Let's take it back to high school. So what do you think is happening that 50% of high school students have straight A's?
Because the parents, going back to trophies and parents saying,
Bingo.
They go and they complain to the teachers, and the teachers don't care.
Yeah.
Because the teachers also realize, I don't want to have the parents bother me with text messages and emails complaining to the school principal. Sure, your kid gets an A.
Yeah,
Gets
but
an A.
isn't it also possible, just like in youth sports, where your mom and dad would drop you off at the park and say, have a good game, see you later. Now there's more parent involvement saying, what's your homework tonight? What's your project? When's it due? Shouldn't we put that on the calendar? Isn't it possible that more parental involvement in a good way has impacted students that they're actually getting better grades rather than, Johnny's a B student, that's who he is.
What happens is is that the parents, because they're now totally vested in their kids' education, they're helping them with their homework, rewriting the kids' papers, that kind of stuff, doing the research for them. When the kid comes home with a B+, it's the parents who rebound and say to the teacher, how could you give my kid a B+?
Let's ask, because you're a father of 3.
Yes.
What was your reaction if any of your children ever came home with a B-, a C+, a C? Wouldn't you automatically say, this is not your potential, you can do better? I can hear you saying that. This is literally like my parents would say, look, if this was the best you could do, that's fine, but it's obviously not.
That's the platitude that still works for me. You looked at your kid, the kid gets a C+, and the kid's got full of excuses. Oh, the teacher's terrible, blah, 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 blah. But you say to the kid in a somber moment, if this is the best you can do, then that's great.
Right.
And you do it with a straight face and hope that the guilt pours out of you, that the youngster says, yeah, I got to do better next time. But, that's the problem. The parents, the kids still work hard, but the parents have had such expectations. I read not too long ago in a book I published called A is for Admission by a woman who used to be on the admissions staff at Dartmouth.
Great book. She got in a lot of trouble for it. This is where the academic index came to light.
Well, I'm not going with that. I'm saying that she...
I'm just giving some reference.
I hear you. But she wrote that there was a high school in Texas, I think it was in Dallas, where the school had... This is like 10 years ago now, Noah. The school had 38 valedictorians.
Well,
what? 38? I mean, I graduated first in my class.
Yeah.
38 of them, because they all had the same GPA.
Yeah,
that's all 38 speeches a lot to listen to in one commencement.
What my second high school did, which was private school, smaller school, they said, we're not going to rank you by class, in your class, because basically we are too small. So we can't have you going around being like, well, I was ranked 25th in my class.
Yeah, that's
great. And by the same token, you can't say you were dead last in your class if you were 50th. So if you're going to have a policy where you make it easier to get A's, what else do you do to make it mean something without kind of...
This is why they invented the SATs and the ACTs, to have objective tests where say you can be a valedictorian. We're thrilled you got straight A's in school, but the fact of the matter is that on the SAT test, from your education compared to somebody else in the country, you're just an average student. You're not as bright as your school thinks you are. How can that be? I was a valedictorian. Well, you're not.
Yeah.
End of story. And that's why the tests are become the real better measuring stick of real academic ability.
I don't think so. I'd love to hear that, but all sorts of bias has been proven over and over and over again. And just like your friends at the SAT, the NCAA, the SAT, we actually have to save the SAT for a whole other time so I can educate you and kind of tell you the folly in your ways. But the SAT is the most flawed, probably the most flawed measure of anything that actually is a predictor of future success, because it's so flawed and it gets in people's head and they do well. The point is that it's a I'm trying to think of a word that I can use on the air here, but it's a terrible, terrible test.
All right.
That has all sorts of biases that have been proven time and again.
Once again, I have proven my thesis without a shadow of a doubt. But Noah, I don't want you to go away feeling disgruntled, so I'll give you an A- for your performance today.
Thank you. I would have killed for an A- average in college, actually. So I appreciate that. So this is another episode. We're going to wrap it up here. Rick Wolf. Visit, what's your website called?
AskCoachWolf.com.
And then subscribe on iTunes, rate us, review us, download us in your phone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. This has been Old School, New School with Noah Savage and Rick Wolf.